I've read news articles about it, but it hasn't been finalized yet. Like, there's no exact price point yet, but yeah, the range I saw. And to be honest, I was, a bit shocked about it because when I first arrived here in Japan, that was 2023, so that was 3 years ago. And the price for the visa application when I applied to be a resident here, I paid around 4,000 yen. And then last year, it increased to 6,000 yen. So that time, I was already surprised. Like, oh wow, they suddenly increased the fee. But, it's 2,000 yen. So, we just follow the rule as a foreigner. Okay. And then now the rumors are, ranging in the more expensive part, like permanent residency can go up as much as 100,000 yen. Other resident status, it can go up to like around 30,000 yen or more. And I think that's a bit too much. I know that Japan is trying to, copy the other European countries, for example, their price range about visa processing and stuff. But I just think that it's kind of unfair because foreigners are also paying, the same taxes the Japanese people pay. Like, for example, I pay Nenkin, I pay the health insurance, I pay my income tax. It's deducted to my salary every year, the residence tax. So, all of those required payments, every foreigner here in Japan are paying unless they're, of course, illegal. But as foreigners who are living here, we just have to follow the rules. And if that's gonna be their rule, yeah, I guess we just have to follow it, even though it's gonna hurt the wallet. Because to be honest, earning in yen is not that, great anymore because the value of yen is now really low. Whew. Requirements to come and live in Japan are much more, stricter compared to other countries, for example. So I needed to get a lot of documents, and there were a lot of inconsistencies with different agencies. If I ask the city office where we live, the requirements that they are gonna give us are different from what the immigration, or like, yeah, from what the immigration are actually requiring. And in order, I got married here in Japan, so there are steps that we had to follow, the documents that I had to get from the Philippines, and those documents I also had to translate them in Japanese. So lots of steps, lots of documents, and inconsistencies between different agencies. Like, the city is saying that, oh, we need this, but then the immigration was saying like, oh, you actually don't need this. So, and then Philippine embassy. So in our case, I live in the Kansai area, so the Philippine embassy, the closest to me, is Osaka. And then they're gonna say like, oh, you need this, but you don't need that. So three different, places, and each of them have their, different requirements. So it was tiring. It was a lot of work, a lot of effort. It was, a team effort actually between me and my husband. And I'm thankful because he was so patient about everything, and I was too. In my case, I was lucky because we were able to process it within like less than a month or like 2 months or so. Ah, yeah, of course. So, of course, I love Japan. Like, I've been here a couple of times already before I actually started living here. But anxiety, I think that's normal, especially since, it's the first time that I lived away, like far from my family. And I also have three cats that I love so much. And I know that it's not easy to bring a pet here. It's not like I can just pack them in my suitcase and go. So, cliche as it may sound, like I packed my life in two suitcases, one 23 kilograms and one 7 kilograms, and then that's it. I built new life here in Japan from well, not zero because I have my husband with me, but it's still starting the career from, having a career in my home country from having no job here. And I actually had to look for a job. That was the thing that gave me anxiety a lot. Like, it was so difficult to do job hunting here as a foreigner. The options are limited. And, you know, as a person who is actually educated, like, of course, I want to find something that is, within my skill set. But yeah, my options were limited at the time, and I'm glad that I found the workplace that I'm working for now. Everyone's super nice, and I guess I just got lucky. After I got my visa, it was just, a sigh of relief. 2 years, 2 years, almost going 3 years of long distance relationship. And that was tough because, it's not cheap to fly between, Philippines and Japan often just to see each other. So he would do that, during the pandemic. He would fly in and out of the country. Of course, I was also willing to do that when I was processing our documents. I couldn't stay in Japan longer than 30 days. So I had multiple entry visa before I got spouse visa. That's why I can come to Japan as many times as I could. But yeah, I couldn't stay for like 30 days max and 180 days, I think, in a year. Yeah, finally having the spouse visa, it was such, a relief because finally we can live together, we can start building our life together. And yeah, thankful and grateful. I know. I think we're just the same as, any other couple. And actually, it's just more fun because, we're learning from each other's culture. He comes to the Philippines and then, visit my family, and we just, enjoy Philippines. So that's, the number of times that I go back, and he always comes back home with me. And in my case, whenever I meet his family, that is also, something fun for me. And his family's like super nice. They're really great people. They welcome me, and I don't feel much different. Like, actually, I don't feel foreigner whenever I'm with his family, because even though they don't speak English, well, some family members actually can speak a little bit of English, but they still try to make me as comfortable as possible, which I'm truly thankful for. So I guess the fun part is just, the different cultures, and there's always something interesting coming up. Going to government offices, because, when you start living here in Japan, there are other, I had to get the my number card, other documents, like, for example, go to the city office and then uh, write some papers for Nenkin or something, or for my health. And going to the government office, gave me so much anxiety because even though I can speak everyday conversational Japanese, I can't understand the polite, or like the keigo, like the polite Japanese that the government officials use. And for the documents, all of the documents here are in Japanese. Whenever they give me something that I had to fill out, it's just like, oh my god, like, okay, please give me time because it's gonna be so slow. And I have to ask, like, sumimasen, alphabet de daijoubu desu ka? Or like, then if they say, ah, sumimasen, I have to write in kanji. Komaru. At first, I needed my husband's help, like, constantly. I asked him to, oh, can you please go with me? But now I started to, be more confident on going by myself. Mostly because I already know the process, and I already know what to do. I know if they need me to write something in English or in Japanese. uh, the bank was actually, the toughest part, because when I changed my name to my husband's surname, they wanted me to write the address, or my home address, all in Japanese, because that was the address that was written in my Zairyu card, or residence card. It's in Japanese, so I have to write exactly the same thing in Japanese on their application form. So I had to write everything in kanji. I don't know how I did that, but I just did. And then the bank teller looked at it, the bank staff, and then he deemed it acceptable. So my advice is to double check, triple check your documents before coming to Japan. 3 months or 6 months validity or something. So if you start processing them, be on a roll. Like, don't delay, 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 delay. And it's better also if you do it as a team. So communicate with your partner, communicate with whatever stuff you need from each other's side, because there'll be a lot. And I think the process is going to be different. So between, for example, a Filipino like me, or between, for example, an American or a European, maybe, yeah, there's still a lot of documents needed. So I think if a person truly wants to live in Japan, I think the visa price is not a hindrance at all. If you really want to live here, that's just, the price or the payment is actually just like, 3% of the total process. Like, you will just ignore the price after everything that you've done, especially if your focus is really trying to live and stay here. And if you ask me if it's still worth it, well, if you are aiming for a spouse visa like me, of course it's worth it, because you're going to live with the person that you love. So that's, and you're going to build a family. So that's really 100% worth it. But, if you're actually just a person who's, trying to look for better opportunities abroad, if you're coming from a third world country, then, you also have a different purpose, and that's also fine too. Yeah, it's difficult, but I think, just trust the process. I think it's worth it.